welcome to your deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be diving deep into the world of myth with Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth.
Oh, yeah.
You sent over a collection of excerpts from his conversations with Bill Moyers. And I have to say, some of these ideas are already blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, Campbell challenges us right at the start
Yeah.
to rethink what myths really are.
Okay.
We often hear them described as a search for meaning.
Right.
But he kind of takes it a step further.
Yeah.
He argues that myths aren't just about the search.
Yeah.
They're about the experience of meaning.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Experiencing meaning through myths.
He calls myths clues to the spiritual potentialities of human life. It's as if they're a roadmap,
Right.
revealing the depths we can reach within ourselves
Okay.
and what we're capable of becoming.
Yeah.
He suggests that each of us has this untapped potential just waiting to be unlocked.
That's a powerful image, this hidden potential within us.
Right.
Makes you wonder what stories we might find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And speaking of stories, how does Campbell see the connection between these ancient myths and the stories we consume today?
He actually makes a direct link to literature.
Okay.
He talks about authors like James Joyce and Thomas Mann, who intentionally wove mythological traditions into their work.
So they were using these ancient patterns to explore the human condition
Exactly.
in a modern context.
Like he mentions the story of Tonio in Thomas Mann's Tonio Kroger.
Okay.
Tonio's an artist drawn to a life of creativity, which sets him apart from his father, who's more practical, more business-minded.
Right.
It's that classic tale of an individual struggling to find their own path.
So even in modern literature,
Yeah.
we see these echoes of ancient myths.
Exactly.
These archetypal journeys of self-discovery.
Yes. And Campbell also emphasizes that these journeys aren't about achieving some flawless ideal.
Okay.
He actually says he loves people for their imperfections.
I love that.
He sees those flaws as what give us depth and make us unique.
It's a refreshing perspective in a world that's constantly pushing us towards perfection.
Right.
Campbell seems to be suggesting that true beauty lies in those cracks and imperfections.
He goes as far as to say that the only way to truly describe a human being is by describing their imperfections.
It's so true. Now, Campbell's views on marriage really caught my eye.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as a simple social arrangement, but as a spiritual exercise. What do you make of that?
It's a fascinating perspective. He talks about this idea of two really are one, and how marriage is this journey towards unity.
Okay.
This merging of two individuals into a single spiritual entity.
It almost elevates the whole concept of marriage to something sacred, beyond the everyday.
Absolutely. And it pushes us to think about relationships in a completely different light.
Yeah. What does it mean to commit to another person?
Right.
On a spiritual level?
Yeah.
What does that journey towards unity even look like?
Yeah, these are
some deep questions.
big questions.
And Campbell doesn't stop there. He also tackles the idea of myth on a societal level.
Right.
He observes that America lacks a unifying ethos.
Yes.
Which leads to law becoming the primary force holding us together.
That's right.
How does he contrast that with?
Well, he contrasts this with more homogenous cultures.
Okay.
Where there's this unspoken mythology, this shared set of values and beliefs that guide social behavior.
You mean like an unstated mythology?
Right, an unstated mythology.
It makes you think about how different societies function, how these shared narratives can shape the way we interact and create a sense of belonging.
Definitely. And speaking of shared narratives, Campbell makes a really important distinction between genuine mystical experiences and what we might call psychological breakdowns.
I remember that striking analogy he uses. The one who cracks up is drowning in the water in which the mystic swims.
Exactly. He brings up the example of the peyote culture among Native Americans.
Okay.
And their very, very careful and structured approach to using the plant in spiritual rituals.
So it's not just, taking a drug to get high.
Right. They have a deep respect for the power of the plant and a very specific way of preparing for and integrating the experience.
It highlights the importance of guidance and preparation when exploring these altered states of consciousness, not just diving in blindly, but understanding the potential risks and benefits.
Yes. And Campbell also challenges our typical understanding of consciousness itself.
Right.
He suggests that it's not just limited to our brains, but present throughout our bodies.
Wow.
And even in the living world around us.
So he's talking about plant consciousness and animal consciousness.
Yes.
Suggesting that we're all part of this interconnected web of awareness.
It's a mind-blowing concept that encourages us to rethink our relationship with nature.
Yeah.
That we're not separate from the natural world. We're participants in it.
And that also ties back to his idea of sacred places and how we can experience the divine in nature.
Absolutely.
So we're not just brains in a jar.
Right.
But beings that are interconnected with the entire world around us. Now, this next part is fascinating. Campbell actually defines what makes a legend.
Oh, yeah.
He says a legend is someone who has been mythologized.
Okay.
They've become a larger-than-life figure who embodies certain qualities that others admire and seek to emulate.
He uses examples like John Wayne and Douglas Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Those iconic figures who represent certain archetypes and influence how people see themselves and the world.
It makes you wonder who our modern-day mythic figures are.
That's a great question.
Who are the people we look up to?
Right.
And what values or qualities do they embody?
Yeah. That's something to think about.
That's a great question to consider. I'm curious, what does Campbell have to say about the stories we tell ourselves through film?
He spends some time reflecting on classic films like Shane.
Oh, yeah.
And why they resonate so deeply with audiences across generations. He points to that archetype of the stranger who arrives, helps others, and then departs.
Right.
A figure that appears in stories throughout history and across cultures.
It's that classic hero's journey.
Exactly.
With a touch of mystery and sacrifice.
Yes. Campbell also highlights the unique power of film.
Oh, how so?
The way an actor can be present in multiple places at once.
Yeah.
Almost like a god.
It's true. It is true.
It makes you appreciate the artistry and magic of filmmaking in a whole new way.
It's like we're willingly suspending our disbelief.
Right.
And entering into this mythic realm.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a couple hours. And speaking of mythic realms.
Yes.
Campbell has some interesting thoughts on Star Wars.
He does.
What are they?
He sees it as a modern myth.
Okay.
Exploring that timeless conflict between humanity and technology, the individual versus the oppressive forces of the state.
Interesting.
He describes the Empire as a crushing machine.
Wow.
Representing the dangers of unchecked power and control.
So it was a cautionary tale wrapped in a space opera.
Exactly. And it sounds like Campbell is advocating for a more humanistic approach.
Yeah.
A world where compassion and individual conscience prevail over blind obedience to authority.
Absolutely. He emphasizes that humanity comes not from the state, but from the heart.
Yes.
It's a reminder that true progress comes from individuals acting with conscience and courage.
Right.
Not from blindly following orders or conforming to a system that prioritizes power over people.
That's right. It's a message that feels particularly relevant in today's world.
It really does. And speaking of our current reality, Campbell suggests that we need a new kind of mythology for a globalized world.
Yeah.
A mythology of the planet, he calls it.
He believes that traditional mythologies rooted in specific cultures and geographic locations are no longer sufficient in an interconnected world facing global challenges.
Right.
He points to Buddhism as an example of a more universal worldview that emphasizes interconnectedness and compassion for all beings.
That's interesting. He also uses the conflict in Beirut.
Yes.
Which was a major news story at the time.
Right.
To highlight the challenges of this global village.
Yeah.
And the dangers of clinging to an us versus them mentality.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Right.
And working together to address the challenges facing our planet.
It's a call for a more inclusive and compassionate approach.
Yes.
To global citizenship.
Oh.
Now get ready for some serious symbolism.
Okay.
Campbell dives deep into the Great Seal of the United States, revealing layers of meaning hidden within its imagery.
Oh, wow.
He connects the symbols to Pythagorean philosophy, Masonic traditions, and the founding ideals of the United States. It's like a secret code embedded in our national emblem.
That's fascinating.
I'm hooked. Tell me more about these hidden meanings.
So he points to the pyramid, the Eye of God.
Okay.
The 13 points representing the original states. And even the motto, "In God We Trust."
Right.
Which he interprets through the lens of 18th century deism.
It's amazing to think about the level of thought and intention
that
went into designing this symbol. It's not just a random collection of images.
It's very deliberate, and Campbell emphasizes that the eye of God represents reason, not a specific religious deity.
Interesting.
He suggests that the Founding Fathers were deeply knowledgeable about symbolism and used it to convey profound truths about the nature of our nation and its role in the world.
It's a reminder that symbols have power.
Yes.
They can convey complex ideas and evoke deep emotions in ways that words sometimes can't.
Absolutely. And building on that idea of symbols and their meaning, Campbell argues that we lack a modern mythology for the way of man.
What does he mean by that?
He's saying that we've moved beyond traditional focuses like animal powers or celestial lights.
Okay.
But we haven't yet found a new story that speaks to our current reality.
So we're in a kind of mythic void.
In a way, yes.
Searching for a narrative that can guide us through the complexities of the modern world.
He calls for a new mythology rooted in the wisdom of nature.
Okay.
And a sense of interconnectedness. A story that can help us navigate the challenges and opportunities of a rapidly changing world.
He even offers a quote that embodies this idea. The idea is trans-theological. It is of an undefinable, inconceivable mystery, thought of as a power that is a source and end and supporting ground of all life and being.
Wow.
It's a mouthful.
It is.
But it points to something profound and universal.
It speaks to that sense of awe and wonder that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
Yes.
A mystery that transcends our attempts to define or explain it.
It's like he's calling for a return to a more mystical understanding of our place in the universe.
Oh.
Now, Campbell also draws some interesting parallels between dreams and myths.
Right.
What are those?
He talks about the personal versus the public.
Okay.
The individual's unconscious versus society's shared dreams.
Right.
He references Jung's concepts of the personal dream and the archetypal dream, suggesting that even our most private inner experiences can connect us to universal patterns of meaning.
So our dreams are not just random firings of neurons.
Right.
But they might hold clues to deeper truths.
Exactly.
About ourselves and the human condition.
He even shares this fascinating detail from an Indonesian myth about the origin of time and death.
Interesting.
Describing how a world of duality emerged from a primal state of unity.
It's a story that speaks to that human longing for wholeness. Yes. And our struggle to reconcile those opposites we experience in life.
It's a reminder that myths often deal with those big questions, those mysteries of existence that we grapple with throughout our lives.
And speaking of grappling with big questions, Campbell delves into some classic creation myths.
Right.
Comparing the Genesis account with a passage from the Hindu Upanishads.
It's fascinating to see how different cultures have approached the mystery of creation.
Yes.
And to notice those similarities and differences in their stories.
He even highlights a quote from the Upanishads that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Verily, he who knows this becomes in this creation a creator.
Wow.
It makes you think about what it means to become a creator in our own lives.
It's a powerful idea. What if we have the potential to shape our reality, to create something meaningful and beautiful out of the raw materials of our lives?
It's a very empowering thought. Now, Campbell doesn't shy away from reinterpreting familiar stories. He offers a surprising take on the serpent in the Garden of Eden.
What's that?
He doesn't see the serpent as simply a symbol of evil.
Okay.
But as the Lord of the central tree, where time and eternity meet.
Interesting.
He connects this imagery to ancient Sumerian art.
Okay.
Which often depicts the serpent, the tree, and the goddess together.
Right.
Suggesting a more nuanced understanding of the serpent's role.
So instead of a purely evil tempter, the serpent might represent something more complex.
Okay.
Perhaps even a force of necessary change or a catalyst for growth.
He even proposes this radical idea that Eden was a dreamtime paradise.
Okay.
Without birth, death, or even true life.
Wow.
And that the serpent's actions were necessary.
Interesting.
To bring about a world of duality.
Right.
A world with all its complexities and challenges.
Yeah.
But also a world where real growth and transformation are possible.
It's a completely different way of looking at that story.
It makes you question those easy interpretations of good versus evil.
Right.
And wonder about the deeper meaning behind these ancient symbols.
Exactly. And Campbell also emphasizes the limitations of language when we're trying to grasp the concept of God. He believes we need to move beyond duality, beyond those easy categories of good and evil, male and female, being and non-being, to truly understand the transcendent.
So we can't just box God into our limited human concepts.
He quotes Meister Eckhart, who said, "God is the name of that which transcends all notions."
It's a reminder that the ultimate mystery is beyond our ability to define or categorize.
That's right.
It's a humbling thought to realize how much we don't know and how much lies beyond our grasp.
Yeah, it really is.
And speaking of moving beyond limitations, Campbell suggests that religious language should be understood metaphorically, not literally.
For example?
For example, he sees Jesus' ascension to heaven not as a literal physical event, but as a symbolic representation of an inward journey, a return to the source within.
So it's not about escaping this world and going to a physical heaven, but about a spiritual transformation that happens within us.
He points to a quote from the Gospel of Thomas that supports this view.
What's that?
"He who drinks from my mouth will become as I am, and I shall be he."
Wow.
It suggests this merging of identities, a realization of the divine within.
It's a beautiful image of spiritual unity and the potential for enlightenment that exists within each of us.
And he connects this idea to Buddhism and the concept of awakening to Christ or Buddha consciousness within ourselves.
So it's not about worshiping an external figure, but about recognizing that same potential for enlightenment within our own hearts and minds.
It's a powerful message of transformation and the possibility of transcending our limitations.
Absolutely.
And speaking of transcending limitations, Campbell delves into the concept of reincarnation, offering a perspective that expands our understanding of life and death.
What does he say?
He sees reincarnation as suggesting a greater depth and breadth to human existence than we typically imagine. It implies that we are more than our physical bodies. And that our consciousness may continue to evolve beyond this lifetime.
It makes you think about the nature of consciousness and the mysteries of life after death. Is there something more to us than meets the eye?
He shares a powerful quote that really captures this sentiment. "Your life is much deeper and broader than you conceive it to be here. What you are living is but a fractional inkling of what is really within you, what gives you life, breadth, and depth. But you can live in terms of that depth. And when you can experience it, you suddenly see that all the religions are talking of that."
It's a beautiful sentiment.
It's a profound invitation to explore the full potential of our being. To tap into that deeper dimension of ourselves. That connects us to something vast and timeless.
And speaking of tapping into deeper dimensions, Campbell suggests that shamans may have been the originators of many religious traditions.
He sees the shaman's experience as a kind of psychological breakthrough, a journey into the depths of the unconscious that allows them to access spiritual knowledge and power.
It reminds me of his earlier point about the mystics swimming in waters that would drown others.
Exactly.
He describes some of the fascinating practices used by shamans in different cultures, highlighting their roles as healers, guides, and interpreters of the unseen world.
It sounds like they were the bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. The ones who could venture into the darkness and return with wisdom to share.
And he even makes a connection to modern-day artists.
Oh, really?
Suggesting that they, too, can serve as interpreters of the unseen, using their creativity to help us connect with deeper levels of meaning and experience.
It's an interesting parallel. Artists often push boundaries and challenge conventional ways of seeing the world. Much like shamans did in their own societies.
That's right. Campbell also makes a fascinating observation about how our physical environment can shape our understanding of the divine.
He contrasts the god of the desert with the gods of the rainforest, highlighting how our relationship with nature influences how we perceive the sacred.
He even suggests that when a foreign god is introduced into a new culture, it's often transformed through the lens of that local culture, taking on new attributes and meanings.
It's like the divine adapts to its surroundings, taking on different forms and expressions, depending on the cultural context.
He shares this humorous anecdote about a British missionary in Hawaii.
Oh, tell me.
who encounters a priestess of Pele, the volcano goddess.
Okay.
And the priestess simply states, "Oh, that's your god, Pele's mine."
It's a lighthearted example.
Yes.
But it underscores the point that our concepts of the divine are often shaped by our cultural and geographic context.
That's right.
It reminds us to be humble in our assumptions about spirituality.
Yes.
And recognize the diversity of ways that humans experience the sacred. Now, to help us make sense of this vast landscape of myth, Campbell outlines 4 main categories of mythological thinking.
Oh,
He calls them the way of the animal powers, the way of the seeded earth, the way of the celestial lights, and the way of man.
It's a framework for understanding how different cultures have viewed the world and their place within it.
And each category reflects a different symbolic system and a set of values associated with a particular culture and historical period.
Can you give us an example?
Can you give us an example of how these categories play out in different cultures?
Yeah. He talks about the key differences between hunting and planting cultures. Hunting cultures tend to view the world as a place of danger and competition, where survival depends on the ability to conquer and dominate.
Makes sense.
Their myths often reflect this worldview,
Yeah.
emphasizing strength, cunning, and the ability to overcome obstacles.
It makes sense that their stories would reflect the challenges they faced in their daily lives.
Planting cultures, on the other hand, view the world as a place of growth and regeneration. They see that cycle of planting, nurturing, and harvesting as a metaphor for life itself.
Interesting.
Their myths often focus on fertility, abundance, and the interconnectedness of all living things.
It's fascinating to see how these different ways of life have shaped the stories that cultures tell themselves about the world.
Exactly.
And speaking of stories, we finally arrive at one of Campbell's most famous ideas, the hero's journey.
Oh, yeah.
He sees the vision quest as a recurring motif in myths across cultures, a universal pattern that speaks to the human desire for transformation and self-discovery.
That's right.
It's a story that we see repeated in countless forms, from ancient epics to modern blockbuster films.
It's a reminder that we all share this common human experience of facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and ultimately finding our place in the world.
He outlines the stages of the hero's journey: departure, initiation, and return.
The hero leaves their familiar world, faces trials and tribulations, and ultimately returns home transformed by their experiences.
It's a powerful archetype.
It is.
It resonates with us on a deep level.
We all face our own hero's journeys in our own lives.
We leave the comfort of our known world, face challenges and setbacks. And if we're lucky, we emerge from those experiences stronger and wiser.
He uses examples like Star Wars, the story of Prometheus, and even his own book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, to illustrate how this pattern appears in stories from around the world and throughout history.
It's a reminder that despite our differences, we all share this common human experience of facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and ultimately finding our place in the world.
That's the journey.
It's amazing how these ancient patterns continue to show up in our modern stories. And speaking of timeless wisdom, we can't talk about Campbell without mentioning his famous advice to follow your bliss.
Right. It's become a bit of a catchphrase.
Yeah.
But there's real depth to that idea. Campbell wasn't just talking about chasing fleeting pleasures. He saw following your bliss as a way to align your life with your deepest passions and purpose. Even if it means going against the grain or challenging societal expectations.
So it's about finding that thing that lights you up, that thing that makes you feel truly alive. And having the courage to pursue it. Even when it's difficult.
Exactly. And Campbell was a living example of this philosophy.
How so?
He dedicated his life to studying mythology, even when it wasn't the most practical or lucrative career path. He followed his passion, and it led him to a rich and fulfilling life.
It's inspiring to see someone walk their talk like that. Now, Campbell uses a classic tale, the story of Gawain and the Green Knight. To explore the idea of heroism and the importance of virtues like loyalty, temperance, and courage. Can you refresh our memory on that story?
Of course. Gawain is a young knight who accepts a challenge from this mysterious Green Knight.
Okay.
He has to strike a blow against the Green Knight, knowing that he'll receive a return blow a year later.
It's a test of courage and integrity.
Yes.
A challenge that forces Gawain to confront his own mortality
right.
and the consequences of his actions.
And during that year of waiting, Gawain faces a series of temptations
right.
that test his commitment to those knightly virtues.
So it's not just about physical strength.
It's not just about physical strength.
But a moral strength as well.
Exactly. It's a classic hero's journey.
Right.
The hero faces obstacles and temptations.
Yeah. And it's through those challenges that his true character is revealed.
Campbell sees this story as a reminder that true heroism is about more than just outward deeds.
Right. It's about those inner qualities we cultivate.
Our integrity, our compassion, our willingness to stand up for what we believe in.
Yes.
Even in the face of adversity.
That's right.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
And speaking of powerful forces, Campbell also talks about the importance of rituals.
Oh,
He sees them as a way to connect with something larger than ourselves.
Okay.
Something eternal and timeless.
Like what?
He uses examples from hunting cultures,
Uh-huh.
where rituals of appeasement and thanks were performed after killing animals for food.
Okay.
These rituals acknowledge the sacredness of life and the interconnectedness of all beings.
Right.
They were a way to maintain balance and harmony with the natural world.
So it's not just about going through the motions,
Right.
but about connecting with a deeper meaning.
Recognizing our place within the web of life.
He talks about the idea of participation mystique.
Yes.
That feeling of interconnectedness and shared experience that rituals can create.
It's like we're tapping into this collective unconscious, a shared pool of wisdom and experience that transcends individual boundaries.
It makes me think about the power of shared experiences, whether it's a religious ceremony, a sporting event, or even just gathering around a campfire with friends.
Right.
There's something about those shared moments that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And speaking of connecting with something larger,
Yes.
Campbell describes his experience visiting the painted caves of Lascaux.
Okay.
And it sounds like a truly awe-inspiring encounter.
He talks about the feeling of entering a sacred space, the darkness, the silence, and then the sudden emergence of these vibrant animal paintings.
Right.
Created thousands of years ago.
It must have felt like stepping back in time, connecting with the spirits of those ancient artists.
He describes the paintings as radiant.
Yes.
And it connects to his earlier points about sacred places and the power of art to transport us to another realm of experience.
It's like those cave paintings are a window into the soul of humanity.
Yes.
A testament to our enduring need to create and express ourselves.
It's incredible to think about the continuity of human experience across millennia.
Yeah.
We're still drawn to the same things that inspired those ancient artists. Beauty, connection, meaning.
That's right.
And speaking of continuity, Campbell explores the role of initiation rites in traditional cultures.
Oh, yeah.
Those ceremonies that mark the transition from one stage of life to another, often involving challenges and transformations.
He uses the example of Aboriginal practices in Australia, highlighting the different challenges and transformations involved in male and female rites of passage.
It sounds intense.
These rituals were designed to strip away the ego, to break down the old identity, and allow a new, more mature self to emerge.
It was a way to prepare young people for the responsibilities and challenges of adulthood.
Right.
It makes you wonder if we've lost something important in modern society by abandoning these kinds of rites of passage.
It's a good question. Do we still have those clear markers of transition?
Right.
Those moments that force us to confront our fears and embrace our potential?
It's a good question to ponder. And for a story that really captures the essence of Campbell's ideas, he shares the Iroquois myth of the young woman who marries a serpent.
Oh, wow.
I love how Campbell weaves these stories into his teachings.
Yeah.
They're not just abstract concepts.
Right.
They're brought to life through these vivid narratives.
This particular story is full of symbolism. It's about a woman's quest for a fulfilling life.
Okay.
The dangers and rewards of following her own path, and ultimately a journey of transformation and empowerment.
Tell me more about the symbolism. What are the serpent?
Okay.
The thunderers, the hidden hearts, and the journey through water represent.
Well, the serpent often represents primal energy, transformation, and the shedding of old skins.
Right.
The thunderers might represent those forces of nature.
Okay.
Or perhaps the challenges and obstacles she must overcome.
Yeah, okay.
The hidden hearts could symbolize her own inner depths,
Right.
the parts of herself she must discover and embrace, and the journey through water could represent a process of purification and rebirth.
It sounds like a metaphor for the hero's journey itself.
Right.
The descent into the underworld of the unconscious, the confrontation with our fears and shadows, and the eventual emergence into a new level of awareness and understanding.
Exactly, and the takeaway from the story is so hopeful.
What is it?
Even when faced with challenges, setbacks, and even negative experiences, there's always the possibility of finding a glory beyond anything ever imagined.
It's a message of resilience, of hope, of the transformative power of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always the potential for growth and renewal. Now, Campbell also offers a unique perspective on the role of chance in our lives.
Oh, really? How so?
He acknowledges that chance events happen. We might be born into a particular family.
Right.
We might experience unexpected setbacks or tragedies. We might be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
But he emphasizes that it's not about blaming or explaining those events, but about how we respond to them. It's about taking responsibility for our own lives. Even in the face of unpredictable circumstances.
So instead of being victims of fate, we can choose to become active participants in our own lives, shaping our destiny even when those winds of change are blowing fiercely.
He sums it up beautifully with this quote: "The problem is not to blame or explain, but to handle the life that arises." It's a powerful reminder that we can't always control what happens to us.
Right.
But we can control how we respond to those events. And that response, that choice, is what ultimately defines us.
That's right.
Now, speaking of challenges, Campbell describes the Tibetan Buddhist wheel of becoming to illustrate the challenges of letting go of attachment.
The Wheel of Becoming depicts the 6 realms of existence and how our desires and attachments keep us trapped in this cycle of suffering.
It sounds a bit bleak.
Well,
is there a way to break free from this cycle?
The path to liberation, according to Buddhist teachings, lies in recognizing the impermanent nature of all things, letting go of our attachments, and cultivating compassion and wisdom. It's about moving beyond that illusion of a separate self and realizing our interconnectedness with all beings.
It's a challenging path.
It is.
But it offers the possibility of transcending suffering and finding true peace and liberation. Now, Campbell brings us back to this idea of radiance, that quality of aliveness and authenticity that he sees in artists, mystics, and those who have tapped into a deeper dimension of experience.
He references James Joyce's term epiphany to describe those moments of sudden insight or revelation when the veil of ordinary perception drops away and we see the world with new eyes.
It's like a glimpse into the heart of reality. A moment of pure awareness and wonder.
It makes you wonder if those moments are available to all of us.
Can we cultivate that sense of wonder? That ability to see the world with fresh eyes? Or is it reserved for artists and mystics?
Campbell seems to believe that this capacity for epiphany is inherent in all of us.
It's about cultivating our awareness. Paying attention to the present moment and being open to the beauty and mystery that surrounds us.
Seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
It's a beautiful invitation to live a more awake and engaged life.
Yes, it is.
So as we journey deeper into Campbell's wisdom, it's important to revisit his thoughts on the father quest.
He sees the father quest as a significant motif in mythology, representing that search for one's true character and destiny.
He contrasts the father, who is often associated with challenges, discipline, and the discovery of one's purpose in the world, with the mother, who represents nurturing, comfort, and early guidance.
So it's about stepping out from under the protective wing of the mother. And venturing out into the world to face challenges, test our limits, and discover who we truly are.
It's a journey of individuation. Of separating from the known and venturing into the unknown.
And it often involves a confrontation with that father figure, either literally or symbolically.
And Campbell reminds us that your character is your destiny.
The choices we make, the values we embody, and the actions we take ultimately shape the course of our lives.
It's about taking responsibility for our choices.
Right.
And recognizing that we have the power to create the life we want to live.
It's an empowering message.
It is.
But it also comes with a sense of responsibility.
Right.
Our choices matter.
They do.
They have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
That's right. Now, Campbell doesn't shy away from addressing difficult topics. He points out some of the ethical contradictions present in religious traditions.
He uses an example from Exodus about the treatment of enemies.
Okay.
Highlighting how some mythologies reserve compassion for the in-group.
Right.
And project aggression outward.
It's a reminder that even sacred texts can reflect the biases and limitations of their time and place.
It's a challenge to look at our own beliefs and traditions with a critical eye.
Yeah.
And ask ourselves, are they truly aligned with our highest values?
Do we practice compassion and understanding, even towards those we perceive as different or hostile?
Campbell encourages us to move beyond that us versus them mentality that so often leads to conflict and suffering.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Yes.
And extending compassion to all beings, regardless of their beliefs, backgrounds, or affiliations.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in today's world, where division and polarization seem to be on the rise.
Now get ready for a fascinating exploration of the virgin birth motif.
Oh, okay.
Campbell traces its origins back to Greek mythology.
Okay.
And examines its symbolic meaning within Christianity.
What does he say about that?
He sees the virgin birth not as a literal biological event, but as a symbolic representation of a hero who is motivated by compassion and a higher purpose, not by personal desires or ambitions.
So it's not about the physical act of conception.
Right.
But about the qualities embodied by the hero.
Exactly. And he even ties in the Indian system of 7 chakras, connecting the serpent to the base chakra, which represents primal energy and instinctual drives.
Right.
And the Christ to the heart chakra, which represents love, compassion, and spiritual awakening.
It's like the virgin birth represents a transcendence of that lower animalistic nature and an embodiment of higher spiritual qualities.
Right.
And along with the virgin birth, Campbell explores the significance of the winter solstice as a time of rebirth and renewal.
He connects this to the birth of Jesus and other solar deities, highlighting that theme of death and rebirth, the transformation of darkness into light, the promise of new beginnings.
It's a reminder that the cycles of nature mirror the cycles of our own lives.
We experience periods of darkness and difficulty, followed by times of growth and renewal.
It's a natural rhythm.
Right.
And it's reflected in the myths and stories we tell ourselves about the world.
It makes you appreciate the wisdom embedded in these ancient traditions. And how they connect us to the rhythms of the natural world.
Exactly.
And speaking of cycles, Campbell also traces the historical dominance of the mother goddess in early cultures. Its suppression with the rise of male-oriented mythologies, and then its eventual reemergence in various forms.
It's a fascinating pattern.
It is.
That reflects those shifting power dynamics between genders throughout history.
Right, and it speaks to the enduring power of the feminine principle.
Yes.
Even in the face of suppression and patriarchal dominance.
He even shares a story from the Upanishads. Where the Vedic gods encounter the goddess Maya Shakti Devi, who reveals the source of their power.
She represents that creative force that gives rise to all things. The feminine principle that is often overlooked or undervalued in male-dominated societies. Makes you wonder if we're witnessing a rebalancing of those energies in our own time. Are we rediscovering the importance of the feminine principle? Not just in relation to women, but as a universal force that exists within all of us.
It's certainly a question worth pondering.
It is.
And to really drive home the vastness of existence, Campbell reflects on his experience looking at a world atlas. Just taking in the sheer magnitude and violence of the universe.
Billions of stars being born and dying, galaxies colliding, black holes swallowing entire solar systems.
It's a humbling perspective.
It is.
That puts our own lives and concerns into a much larger context.
He makes an important point. That exploring outer space is only truly meaningful if we've also undergone an inner transformation.
Otherwise,
we're just taking our baggage with us.
Exactly.
It's like he's saying that the real journey is inward, not outward. If we haven't explored the depths of our own hearts and minds,
Right.
what good is it to explore the vastness of space?
We'll just carry our same old patterns and limitations with us.
Now, for a bit of a lighter note, Campbell delves into the world of the troubadours.
Those medieval poets who revolutionized our understanding of love.
They elevated romantic love
Right.
to this spiritual experience, a force that could even challenge societal norms and conventions.
It's amazing to think about
Yeah.
how much our modern conceptions of love have been influenced by these poets from centuries ago.
He also makes a distinction between eros, which is impersonal desire or lust,
Right.
and amor,
Okay.
which is personal transformative love.
So it's not just about physical attraction, but about a deeper connection, a love that has the power to transform us and open our hearts to new possibilities.
And speaking of powerful symbols,
Yes.
Campbell dives into the multifaceted meanings of the Grail.
He sees it as both a representation of our hidden potential and the ultimate goal of our spiritual journey.
Like the wounded Grail King.
Yeah.
We're all searching for that which will make us whole. And perhaps that wholeness comes through embracing a higher purpose.
Right.
Just like the hero in the virgin birth stories we discussed earlier.
It's a powerful image. The wounded healer.
Yeah.
The search for wholeness. The journey towards integration and enlightenment. It's a story that continues to resonate with us today.
It does.
And speaking of journeys, how does Campbell view the journey of marriage?
Right. He uses the word ordeal.
Yes.
Which doesn't exactly sound romantic.
I think he uses ordeal in the sense of a deliberate submission to something larger than yourself.
Okay.
A willingness to surrender to the demands of the relationship and work through those inevitable challenges that arise.
Right.
It's about moving beyond personal desires and ego-driven needs.
Okay.
And finding fulfillment in the commitment itself.
So it's not always easy.
It's not always easy.
But it can be deeply transformative.
Absolutely. It's a journey of growth.
Right.
Of learning to compromise, to communicate effectively,
Yeah.
and to support each other through those ups and downs of life.
And it ties back to his advice to follow your bliss.
Right. It's not about chasing fleeting pleasures, but about aligning your life with your deepest values,
Right.
even when it's hard.
Campbell reminds us throughout his work that life is hard.
It is, yeah.
There will be chance events,
Right.
tragedies, things we can't control.
That's right.
But as he says, the challenge is not to blame or explain, but to handle the life that arises.
It's about embracing the fullness of life.
Right.
With all its joys and sorrows, challenges and triumphs.
And maybe by confronting those challenges, we start to tap into that radiance he talks about, the beauty and meaning that's hidden beneath the surface of everyday life.
And maybe, just maybe, if we're lucky, we'll even catch a glimpse of that eternal dance, the interplay of time and eternity that Shiva so beautifully embodies.
It's a beautiful image to hold on to that sense of interconnectedness and the eternal dance of creation and destruction. But speaking of different world, Campbell's exploration of the troubadours really caught my attention. To think they completely revolutionized how we think about love.
It is remarkable how they elevated romantic love to this almost spiritual experience, a force that could even challenge those societal norms like marriage. It really makes you think about how much our ideas about love have been influenced by these poets from centuries ago.
And from love to legend. What about Campbell's insights into the Grail? It seems like such a simple object, but it's been used to represent so many complex ideas.
Yeah, it's a fascinating symbol. He sees it as both a representation of our hidden potential and like the ultimate goal of our spiritual journey. Like the wounded Grail King, we're all searching for something to make us whole. And maybe that wholeness comes through embracing a higher purpose, just like that hero in the virgin birth stories we talked about earlier.
And how does this idea of wholeness relate to marriage? He calls it an ordeal, which doesn't sound very appealing.
Yeah, I think he's using ordeal to mean like a deliberate submission to something larger than yourself.
Okay.
You know, a willingness to surrender to the demands of the relationship, to work through those inevitable challenges that arise. It's about moving beyond those personal desires and ego-driven needs and finding fulfillment in the commitment itself.
So not always easy, but it can be deeply transformative.
Absolutely. It's a journey of growth, of learning to compromise, to communicate effectively, and to support each other through those ups and downs of life.
And it ties back to his advice to follow your bliss.
Right.
Right? It's not about chasing fleeting pleasures, but aligning your life with your deepest values, even when it's hard, just like Campbell did when he dedicated his life to studying myth.
Absolutely. And he reminds us throughout all of his work that life is hard. There will be chance events, tragedies, and things we can't control. But as he says, the challenge is not to blame or explain, but to handle the life that arises. And maybe by confronting these challenges, we start to tap into that radiance he talks about. The beauty and meaning that's hidden beneath the surface of everyday life.
That's what makes these deep dives so valuable. It's like we're given this new lens to see the world, to connect the dots between these ancient stories and our own lives. And maybe that's the key takeaway from all of this, that we can become creators in our own lives, shaping our own stories, finding our own bliss, and embracing the mystery of it all.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, if we're lucky, we'll even catch a glimpse of that eternal dance, the interplay of time and eternity that Shiva so beautifully embodies.
What a thought to leave us with. Dear listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the power of myth. Until next time.